Even after more than 6 decades on stage, Mick Jagger still knows how to shock the world. At 82, the Rolling Stones frontman has finally opened up about something fans never expected: the 7 singers he says he could never resist. These aren't just names on a list. They're the voices that shaped him, haunted him, and in his own words, made me feel alive when the world went silent. What Mick revealed isn't just about admiration. It's about love, temptation, and the power of music that still burns inside him after all these years. Mick Jagger has lived a life so full that most people could barely imagine it. From the wild nights of the 1960s to the polished tours of the modern day, he's seen everything: fame, excess, heartbreak, and rebirth. Yet beneath all the noise, there has always been one thing that kept him human: music that moved his soul. When he spoke recently about the singers he could never resist, the world leaned in. For once, it wasn't about scandal or gossip. It was about pure, raw admiration and something deeper than that. It was about the moments in life when another artist's voice touches you so deeply that it changes your course forever. The first name on Mick's list was one nobody was surprised to hear: Tina Turner. Their connection went far beyond the stage. Mick has often said that watching Tina perform in the 1960s changed how he moved, how he felt, and how he wanted to express himself. "Tina taught me how to move like the music was part of my blood," he once admitted. She had a fire, a spirit that matched his own. When they performed together years later, the chemistry between them was electric, not romantic, but primal, as if two forces of nature were finally meeting. Tina showed Mick that power on stage wasn't just about sound. It was about soul. She didn't sing songs, she lived them. And in that raw passion, Mick saw something of himself. Even today, he still calls her one of the most inspiring performers he's ever known. The second singer he named surprised everyone: Amy Winehouse. Mick had met her only a few times, but she left a lasting impression. He said Amy reminded him of what rock and roll once was: dangerous, honest, and brutally emotional. "She sang like she'd lived 10 lives in one," Mick once said. He admired her ability to pour every broken piece of her heart into her voice. To him, Amy was a mirror of the chaos that made great music, the kind of artist who burned brightly, even if it meant burning out too soon. Mick once confessed that hearing Amy's version of "Love is a Losing Game" brought him to tears. He recognized the pain in her words, a kind of suffering that fame only made worse. In her music, he saw what he'd been through himself: the price of living for the spotlight while trying to keep your soul intact. The third name was Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul. For Mick, Aretha represented everything music should be. Her control, her grace, her power, it was something almost spiritual. Aretha didn't just sing, Mick said. She commanded the room. He learned from her that true confidence doesn't shout, it radiates. Whenever he heard her voice, he felt humbled, like a student in the presence of a master. During the early years of the Rolling Stones, Mick often tried to emulate Aretha's emotional honesty. He didn't want to copy her style, but he wanted to find his truth the way she did. When he performed "Gimme Shelter," that haunting cry came from the same place Aretha sang from: the heart of human experience, where pain and beauty meet. Next came David Bowie, a man who wasn't just a friend, but also a mirror of Mick's own restless spirit. Their friendship was famous, their rivalry even more so. Yet when Mick spoke about Bowie, there was nothing but warmth. "David was the one person I could never predict," he said. "He made me want to keep evolving." They challenged each other constantly, in style and sound and courage. Bowie pushed boundaries without fear, and Mick admired that. When they recorded "Dancing in the Street" together, it wasn't just a collaboration, it was two icons celebrating everything wild and fearless about their generation. Mick has said that Bowie's curiosity and creativity kept him from ever becoming complacent. He could never resist Bowie's brilliance because it reminded him that art should always move forward. The fifth name Mick revealed was Janis Joplin, the wild, untamed spirit of the 60s. Mick admitted that Janis terrified and fascinated him in equal measure. She was unpredictable, raw, and filled with fire. "Janis didn't perform," he said. "She exploded." Her energy was so intense that it could consume everyone in the room, and Mick loved that. He once watched her perform at a small venue and said he felt like the air had been punched out of the room. Her voice wasn't perfect, but it was real. That's what Mick respected most. In Janis, he saw the truth of music, the idea that imperfection can be more powerful than perfection. She reminded him that every performance should feel like the last one you'll ever give. The sixth name was a woman whose music touched him deeply, Etta James. Mick had grown up listening to her voice on old records, long before he ever stood on stage. Her version of "I'd Rather Go Blind" haunted him. When Etta sang, you felt every word, he said. To him, Etta was a master of emotional control. She could make heartbreak sound like beauty. Mick often credited Etta with teaching him the importance of restraint. Sometimes, he said, you don't need to shout to make someone feel something. You just have to mean it. Etta's ability to balance vulnerability and power became something he carried into his own performances. And then there was the seventh name, Marianne Faithfull. This choice was deeply personal. She wasn't just a singer Mick admired. She was once the woman he loved. Their relationship in the late 1960s was as beautiful as it was destructive. But even after the heartbreak, Mick never lost his respect for her artistry. Marianne had a voice that could cut through pain like a blade. She was elegant, tragic, and fearless. When she reinvented herself later in life, Mick said he admired her even more. She found strength in her scars, he said softly. That's what makes a real artist. Each of these 7 singers represented a different part of Mick's journey. From Tina's fire to Marianne's sorrow, they each reflected a truth about life, love, and music that Mick had lived through himself. Together, they formed a portrait of a man who, even at 82, still burns with passion for the art that made him who he is. But the story doesn't end there. Because what Mick said next revealed something even deeper about who he has become, and what music still means to him after all these years. When Mick Jagger spoke about the 7 singers who shaped his life, it was more than just admiration. It was confession, the kind that only comes with age, honesty, and a lifetime of reflection. He wasn't listing favorites. He was unveiling pieces of his soul. At 82, Mick's words carried the weight of memory. The wild energy that once fueled the Rolling Stones had softened into wisdom. He wasn't chasing fame anymore. He was remembering the people who had reminded him time and time again what it means to feel. He said that when he looks back now, it isn't the fame or the wealth that stands out. It's the moments, the voices that cut through the noise and reach something deep inside him. Those moments that reminded him he was still alive, still human, still hungry for truth. Tina Turner, Amy Winehouse, Aretha Franklin, David Bowie, Janis Joplin, Etta James, and Marianne Faithfull, 7 names that, in Mick's eyes, represent 7 different kinds of magic. Each of them taught him something that no teacher, no critic, no producer ever could. He began with Tina again. The world knew their chemistry. But what few realized was how much he learned simply by watching her. Tina didn't just sing, he said softly. She commanded.